Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to give someone a reason for something. Now, there are several ways to say because in Korean, depending on what it is that you mean. And this lesson is going to focus on the two most common and most essential ways to say because. So here is the first form, 니까. To use it, get a verb stem and attach 으니까 if it ends in a consonant, or attach 니까 if it ends in a vowel. Then finish the rest of the sentence. Or you can attach 요 if it's used at the end of a sentence. For example, 하다 would become 하니까, and 먹다 would become 먹으니까. For verb stems that end with the consonant 릴, remove it first and then attach 니까. So 살다 would become 사니까. For verb stems that end with the consonant 비읍, remove it and then attach 우, like usual, followed by 니까. So, 맵다 would become 매우니까. Now let's go right in and take a look at several examples using this form 니까, and then next we're going to contrast it to the second form we're going to be learning about. So here are some examples. 음식이 뜨거우니까 조심하세요. Be careful because the food is hot. 수박이 차가우니까 더 맛있어요. The watermelon is more delicious because it is cold. 저는 매일 일을 하고 있으니까 항상 바빠요. I am always busy because I am working every day. 매운 음식을 자주 먹으니까 배가 아파요. My stomach hurts because I often eat spicy food. 저는 한국어를 많이 좋아하니까 한국어가 재밌어요. Korean is fun because I like Korea a lot. 제가 한국 사람이 아니니까요. It's because I'm not a Korean. Notice the order of these sentences when saying because. The reason will always come before the because form. And this will be the same for any because form. So let's talk about some exceptions with this form, some places where you cannot use it. First of all, you cannot use this because form whenever you want to say that someone feels some emotion, feels a certain way because of something. For example, you couldn't use this form to say that you're happy, sad, thankful, or sorry because of something. Instead, you'll need to use the 서 form to say because, which we'll learn next. So here's our next form, which also means because, and that is the 서 form. And to make it, you'll first conjugate a verb as usual, but without adding 요 to the end. Then you'll just attach 서. And you can finish the rest of the sentence or attach 요 if it's used at the end of a sentence. For example, 하다 would become 해서, 먹다 would become 먹어서, 살다 would become 살아서, and 맵다 would become 매워서. Although this form also means because, it shows more emphasis of a cause and effect. So using the 서 form emphasizes that something was caused by something else. So next, let's look at some example sentences using this 서 form to mean because. 머리가 아파서 병원에 갔어요. I went to the hospital because my head hurt. 어제 무서워서 잠을 잘 수 없었어요. Yesterday, I couldn't sleep because I was scared. 머리가 너무 길어서 누나가 잘라줬어요. My older sister cut my hair because it was too long. 잘라주다, conjugated here as 잘라줬어요, in the past tense, comes from the verb 자르다, meaning to cut, and 주다, to give. So it means that she did it as a favor to me. 조금 피곤해서요. Because I'm a little tired. 일찍 와줘서 고마워요. Thank you for coming early. 초콜릿이 더 없어서 슬퍼요. I'm sad because there's no more chocolate. So we've learned both forms for saying because, but there are some situations when you can't use the 서 form too. First of all, the 서 form can never be used when you're giving someone a command because of something. For example, you couldn't say 오늘 날씨가 좋아서 밖에서 만나세요. Meet outside because the weather is good today. Instead, use the 으니까 form to make a command. 오늘 날씨가 좋으니까 밖에서 만나세요. Meet outside because the weather is good today. Also, the 서 form cannot be used when making a suggestion. For example, this sentence would be incorrect. 오늘 날씨가 좋아서 밖에서 만날까요? Shall we meet outside because the weather is good today? Instead, use the 으니까 form here too. 오늘 날씨가 좋으니까 밖에서 만날까요? Shall we meet outside because the weather is good today? So let's use both of these forms together in a conversation practice between two people, 희진 and 수현. First, 희진 says, 아, 늦어서 미안해요. Ah, I'm sorry I am late. 괜찮아요. 아직 시작 안 했어요. It's okay. I didn't start yet. 그래서 찬곤 씨는 오늘도 안 오세요? So 찬곤 is not coming today too? You can use 그래서 at the beginning of a sentence to mean so or therefore. 네, 어젯밤 저한테 전화를 했어요. Yes, last night he called me. 다른 약속이 있어서 안 와요. He's not coming because he has another appointment. Note that 다르다, to be different, can conjugate as 다른 as an adjective to mean different, other, or another. 하지만 다른 사람들이 걱정하고 있어요. But the other people are worrying. 어제도 안 왔으니까요. Because he didn't come yesterday either. Note that this 으니까 form can also be attached to a verb stem in the past tense. And we'll learn how to do this next. 아마 바빠서 여기까지 오는 게 힘들 수 있어요. Maybe, because he is busy, it can be difficult to come here, or literally to come up to here. So perhaps he lives far away. 정말요? Really? 그런데 제가 어젯밤 찬곤 씨를 봤어요. But I saw 찬곤 yesterday night. 그래요? Really? 어디서 봤어요? Where did you see him at? 테마파크에서 찬곤 씨가 친구랑 노는 걸 봤어요. At a theme park, I saw 찬곤 hanging out with a friend.
아, 늦어서 미안해요. 괜찮아요. 아직 시작 안 했어요. 그래서 찬곤 씨는 오늘도 안 오세요? 네, 어젯밤 저한테 전화를 했어요. 다른 약속이 있어서 안 와요. 하지만 다른 사람들이 걱정하고 있어요. 어제도 안 왔으니까요. 아마 바빠서 여기까지 오는 게 힘들 수 있어요. 정말요? 그런데 제가 어젯밤 찬곤 씨를 봤어요. 그래요? 어디서 봤어요? 테마파크에서 찬곤 씨가 친구랑 노는 걸 봤어요.
This 으니까 form, as well as most grammar forms that we'll learn, can also be attached to verb stems that are in the past tense. So here's how you can make that. To get the past tense verb stem, conjugate it to the past tense as usual. The past tense verb stem will be the conjugated part before the final double 시옷 letter. For example, 하다 would normally conjugate in the past tense as 했어요. So if we cut it off from that part, we'll get the past tense verb stem, which is just this, 했. 먹다 would become 먹었어요, and then the verb stem of that would be 먹었. And 있다 would become 있었어요, and the verb stem would be 있었. However, the past tense should not be used together with the 서 form. For example, 하다 could become 해서, but should not become 했어서. Note that in the sentence, 배가 아파서 병원에 갔어요. I went to the hospital because my stomach hurt. The past tense meaning comes completely from the tense of the final verb, here, 갔어요. However, before we go, one quick note about the 으니까 form. This form is not a formal sounding form, but it's not impolite. However, in order to speak more formally, we'll use a different form of because, which we'll learn about in the next lesson. So in this lesson, we learned two very common ways to say because, as well as when we can and can't use each of them. So practice both of those, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. 그럼 다음에 또 봐!